good morning to everyone, and I want to give you an brief update on the City of Houston 6 months after Harvey, and provide you with some priorities that we are setting. And it has been 6 months. It's incredible. 6 months ago, Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston with more than 50 inches of rain and damaged more than 345,000 housing units. Houston suffered, and that's single-family homes as well as apartment units. Houston suffered an estimated $2.5 billion in damages to city assets and infrastructure. $2.5 billion. I do want you to know that at this point the city had insurance coverage of $100 million, and within the 6 months, I want to thank Tina Pius and ARA and her entire team. The city has collected the entire $100 million, which is now already in hand. None yet has been applied to repair city facilities because we're coordinating our efforts with FEMA, our federal partners, to make sure that we appropriate those dollars in the best places so that we can avoid any de-obligations down the road. I will say to you that in terms of our public infrastructure, there are certain things I do want to highlight. The municipal courts that services thousands of individuals within a week. The municipal court is in bad shape, and we are having to address those concerns. There's only one elevator that's working. It took on water, so that is a high priority. The other one is the Wortham Center. And the Wortham Center is still not in operation. We're working on that to get it back in operation. And we do anticipate that it being repaired in time for the opera season to start on time. And so that will take place, and we're excited about that because we don't want to delay the opera. So by September 1, we will be back in the Wortham Theater. In the meantime, I will continue to perform at certain arts groups and plays, and to offset the fact that Wortham is down. So please come out and check me out again on March the 1st, since March the 4th, since Memphis has asked me to return to the cast. At the same time, you know that the Northeast Water Purification Plant, as well as 2 of our sanitary sewer plants, were underwater. Oh, Councilmember Martin, why don't y'all come up? Y'all come up. I don't have the Councilmember. Sister Nellis? No, Mama, you can come on. Councilmember Christie. Come on, y'all. Closeness is good. Councilmember Robinson. Yeah, please come on up. Thank you. So as you know, the Northeast Water Purification Plant and 2 of our sanitary sewer plants were totally submerged. And we're working now to make sure that these systems are more resilient as we move forward. And that's very, very important. As of February 20th, at one point we had 10,000 people in shelters. Once the waters receded, most returned home. And city provided rapid rehousing for 936 people in 42 days, and we were able to close our shelters. As of February the 20th, we have 3,422 households, not people, who remain in hotels. So as of February 20th, there are 3,422 households that remain in hotels. Harvey was a historic event. While we are still not where we want to be or need to be, our emergency response was equally historic. Full recovery takes time, resources, and requires tough decisions, but I will say the debris was picked up in record time throughout the city, and we owe Solid Waste, Harry Hayes and his team, all of the various contractors, our partners in San Antonio, in Austin. We owe them a great deal for coming in and partnering with us. Collaboration does work, and it worked in this particular case. Since Harvey, we have made some great strides. The Houston Fire Department has secured 4 hot water vehicles and 6 evacuation boats through private donors. And then on the agenda for this coming week, there's a request for council to approve an additional $2 million for our fire department to purchase the additional assets. If you can remember, Chief Pena identified assets that were needed for future storms, and then with the appropriation of approval of those $2 million, we will have met the priorities that he set. I've also approved more than $300,000 in flood response training. So not only do we need the assets, which we will have, we want to make sure that our firefighters are adequately trained, and we have taken steps to provide that training. We will be better prepared for the next storm. The Greater Houston Community Foundation Hurricane Harvey Relief Fund has raised really about $113 million from 125,000 donors. Round 4 announcement will occur the week of March the 5th. That'll be round 4. And the focus areas for that round include behavioral health, legal services, housing services, housing repair services, as well as nonprofits who focus on case management. And we know there's a tremendous need for that. Thousands of individual volunteers have joined with nonprofits to muck out and gut damaged homes and to help people recover. Can't say enough for the nonprofits, okay? Can't say enough, because with the federal dollars coming slowly, okay, and people in need right now, but for the nonprofits and the volunteers, immediate needs would not be met. We know there's still a lot of needs out there, but I do want to thank the nonprofits for just saving the day and stepping up and trying to meet the needs throughout our city. Congress passed, we still need resources to help people rebuild their lives and their homes to help the city mitigate the risk of future flooding. Congress passed a $90 billion package to be divided amongst Texas, Florida, and California, and the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. We still need funds for flood mitigation projects to expand the bayous of Third Reservoir, home buyouts, elevation, the coastal spine, and most of those dollars will have not reached the city of Houston, but hopefully they are coming real soon. And the only money that we're operating right now with coming from FEMA, the feds, is the $424 million from FEMA. Another $5 billion has been designated, but may not be available until sometime after the summer. And moving to long-term recovery, we continue to work with our federal partners and the Texas General Land Office to get Houstonians back into their homes as quickly as possible. More than 345,000 homes were impacted by Harvey, 135,000 of which are single-family homes. So far, FEMA has identified only about 1,100 as potentially eligible for temporary direct housing assistance. You know, we strongly take issue with that number, and we are continuing to work with FEMA to expand that number. These may be people who just called in, but we recognize that there are thousands of people in our city who have been impacted. They may not know who to call. That's why the nonprofits have stepped in, volunteers, case managers, in order to assist people in where to call and provide them that information. That is a critical need. Case managers, a critical need that remains in our system. And in fact, the county judge and I are meeting with some people from Health and Human Services later on today. But the city still needs qualified case managers that can deliver intensive services like navigating clients to housing options and assisting with housing barriers such as farmer credit or criminal record issues. A number of neighborhood restoration centers have been set up, and Marvin Odom will tackle that. The recent waiver of the city's RV's ordinance opens another avenue of housing for homeowners who need a roof over their head as they work to rebuild their homes. 7 mobile home permits have already been issued. I know that there's a large family that's going to be moving into their mobile home fairly soon, and we'll be out there with them. The city permitting office has received 8,897 Harvey-related repair permit applications. So that's 8,897 Harvey-related repair permit applications have already come in. While we acknowledge that we are making progress, we also want to be very clear that recovery is not happening fast enough for any of us. And then as we go forward, As you know, I'm proposing revisions to Chapter 19 to ensure new dwellings are built high enough to save lives and property in the event of flooding. And then simply, let me just say this. The way we've done things in the past, we are going to make changes. This is about future construction, that we have to build higher in order to mitigate the risk of flooding, operating under new guidelines. But the important element is that we have to build higher, using the 500-year of floodplain as the guiding tool in all of that. At this time, let me stop. One of the things that we have done within the 6 months is to appoint Marvin Odom, the former head of Shell, who led the Shell's recovery effort after Hurricane Katrina, to lead the city's recovery effort here. I want to thank Marvin Odom publicly for the work that he and his team have done. They have done a yeoman's job working with various department heads and nonprofits and individuals, people, organizations on the state level and on the national level, really organizing the effort. So I really want to thank him. I want him to know that as we move forward, I'm going to have to reduce his pay because of limitations on the budget. He's getting $1 a year, but that is more, Marvin, than we can afford. I'm sorry. So I hope that you will continue to offer your services, but at least we're looking at giving you 50 cents. So I certainly want to thank him publicly for taking his time and his expertise and working on behalf of the city of Houston. He's a native Houstonian, and the love for this city certainly speaks for itself. Marvin Odom, Chief Recovery Officer.
Thanks, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. You can tell I'm new to the city. If I'd have realized this was no tie day, I would have been the first one in line, but I'm still learning the ropes here. So the 6-month milestone for what will clearly be a multi-year recovery. A couple of messages I want to leave with you today, but they fall into the categories of having clear principles, strong partnerships, and hard choices. I think that's what the recovery is about. I'd like to share those 6 principles with you, principles that have been guided by the mayor. And as he said, these are personal, not just because of the role I'm playing here in the city, but also as a lifelong Houstonian. So the first principle is that we're going to build forward, not back. We're going to grab this opportunity to ensure Houston thrives in the future. And that means shaking up some of the comfortable but unsustainable ways that we've done things in the past. Second principle is ensuring the recovery is targeting those areas where there is the greatest need. And sometimes that can be in the quietest communities, and we recognize that. Third principle is we're going to run this recovery as a lean, coordinated machine using business principles, partnerships, and innovation to stretch these recovery dollars more than we've ever been able to do in the past. The fourth principle is we're going to preserve the diversity and the culture of Houston's neighborhoods. Number 5, we're going to drive for an even more economically vibrant, green, livable city, a city that's competitive in attracting people and business to our borders. And number 6, we're going to be ready for the next Harvey. Because the next Harvey, whatever it looks like, whatever it is, will come. And we want to lock in being more resilient and smarter than we have been in the past, and to ensure that we can protect people and get back on our feet even quicker next time. So now with those principles in mind, I want to highlight a few areas and a few things that we've done so far. So I mentioned we're changing the way we're doing business. And the current example is the one that the mayor mentioned, that is the proposed floodplain building ordinance changes. Now change is not easy, but we have to change how we build in our city. And we've heard and we've anticipated the arguments on this topic, including the cost implications and others. But I will tell you, as a veteran of a highly regulated business, I feel comfortable in challenging the developers and builders in this city to innovate, to find more cost-effective ways to meet these new guidelines. And we want to work with you as you help us do that. And this is more about, and the mayor mentioned this is more about just looking back at past storms and even Harvey and saying, how do we protect against that? It's about looking forward and saying what could happen in this city, what do we need to be prepared for, and in some cases that may be going beyond what we saw in Harvey. Now second, we've also been advocating hard from here all the way to Washington, D.C. for Houston's share of federal dollars. It's been a full court press with the mayor, with council members, state representatives, and a lot of other people, face to face with Congress, with HUD, with FEMA, with the appropriations committees, and a number of other people in all of those places, including the state. I didn't mention the state. Now, in those visits, we've made the case that the entire country should be interested in what's happening here in Houston. Now, that's not just because of the recovery lessons that we hope we can share as part of this process, and it's not just because we're the fourth largest city. It's because we have a standout economy that is going to continue to grow. It's because this area represents something on the order of 6% of the U.S. GDP. The port, obviously, is critical to the entire country, and I could go on with the kind of examples that just indicate how economically important this area is to the rest of the country. Now, we know that the third supplemental from Congress has been approved. We know what it is. And it's significant that that has increased from $48 billion at the end of the year to $90 billion when it was approved in February. But a message that we need to land here, and this is very important, what we don't know is how much of that money will make its way to Houston. So our work is clearly not done in this part of the recovery. We've made good progress on assessing the damage to city assets and infrastructure, and we've prioritized those to make sure we're focused on the most critical areas first. Now, the next step here, very close to my heart, is a deeper negotiation with FEMA to make sure that we capture the funds, not just to repair these assets, but to take them out of harm's way in the future and not be back in this same situation. Now, making that case for mitigation funding is our responsibility here in the city. And this is done on an asset-by-asset basis, and it requires our best engineers and innovative thinking. Now, Director Haddock and her team are doing a great job in this area, and I'm pleased with the progress that we're seeing. Now, we've also opened 12 neighborhood restoration centers around the city where residents can go for case management and other essential help. Directors Takasha Francis and Stephen Williams have been key to launching this concept along, and look around the audience today, along with the invaluable partnership with nonprofit organizations like Baker Ripley, like Memorial Assistance Ministries, like the Local Initiative Support Coalition, and the Houston Area Urban League, and so many others that I wish I could stand here for the next 15 minutes and list every one of you. So please accept my apologies that I can't do that right now. Now, this approach is a new concept for the city of Houston, and it's working. And we look forward to maturing this. It can be better than it is today, so we look forward to maturing it with the county and with the nonprofit community to both use it as a tool to recover now and to ensure that this type of center and this type of capability can be operating immediately after the next disaster comes. Now, with Director Tom McCaslin's leadership, we're developing a program for housing that prioritizes returning families to fully repaired homes. And we're focused on a mission-driven path of getting people back to full recovery, a very important word, rather than using a lot of our resources just for stopgap measures. Now, an important message that goes along with that is that approach can be slower in the initial launch, this focus on permanent home repairs, but it's validated by the fact that 80% of qualified candidates so far are choosing home repair over RVs or apartments. So this is what people are asking us for. This recovery is also an opportunity to take an enormous step forward in achieving the vision of ensuring access to an affordable and safe home for every resident. And to that end, we are also coordinating, again, look around the room, with private and philanthropic funding sources, particularly now, as the mayor said, to fill the gap before the federal funds get here. Now, next week, we'll begin repairs on the first 10 FEMA-approved homes. An additional 300 homes are currently in the inspections and the approval process. And by the end of June, we anticipate 500 homes will be repaired by this FEMA-funded program, a program that provides up to $60,000 per home for repairs. So this is a significant opportunity. And I hope you start to get to the sense that now we're at the point where these programs begin to ramp up and become more significant across the city. But finally, we're preparing for the much larger wave of housing recovery that's funded by Housing and Urban Development and the block grants that will make their way to the city. Now, as the mayor said, while we don't expect that those funds will likely arrive before, say, the August timeframe, we're putting every element that we can in place to ensure that we can immediately begin repair and new construction work when that money arrives. I know it's on your mind. So with regards to flood mitigation, and when I say flood mitigation, what I'm saying is think about transformative projects that will make Houston more resilient, like the Bayou projects, diversion channels, reservoirs, detention, and surge protection. Steve Costello is leading the way in coordinating with the Harris County Flood Control, TxDOT, and others to ensure alignment on the right projects and in the right order. And that's a difficult thing to agree on, but it's extremely important that we do that. Now, you can expect to, and you will see unprecedented coordination and cooperation between these agencies. By working together and leveraging the Harvey funding, we have the opportunity, I think it's fair to say, as never before, to advance many of these transformative projects. Now, some of these projects have been on the books for years, and others will represent new and bold ideas. Now, much of this is clearly long-term work with funding and a number of other challenges, but alignment now on those priorities and which projects when is going to be critical to moving us forward. We'll also continue to look outside of the city and the county governments for modeling and predictive technology and other ideas that can improve our resilience to flooding. I think there's a lot more to be done in this space. There's a lot of ideas, and we want to harness those and pull those in, so you'll see us executing on that. I want to close with just two quick points. And the first one that the mayor referred to, and that is that everything that we're doing is part of a massive mosaic. That's how I'd ask you to think about it. A mosaic of solutions, programs, and partnerships that have to work together in order for us to achieve these goals. And it's always going to be tempting to focus on individual elements or pick apart individual elements, but this team, this recovery team, and a lot of them are here today, must be mindful of the interconnected role that each of those elements plays. The second point I want to make is that some of you have, and if you haven't yet, you will, hear me complain very loudly about times of and reasons for slow progress. But again, I want to preempt that message just a bit by saying that is nearly always about process and systems and rarely, if ever, about individuals. The people that we come into contact with that are working on this recovery from here all the way to Washington are working extremely hard to do the right thing. With that, let me hand it back to you, Mayor.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Okay. You stay at the dollar. I'm gonna keep you at the $1. Okay. Yeah, I mean you won me over. You know. There are many Houstonians who still need assistance rebuilding their lives and homes. A majority of this assistance is being provided by local nonprofits and non-governmental organizations with the help of volunteers. To support these recovery and rebuilding efforts, I'm excited to announce the Houston Still Needs You campaign developed by the Mayor's Office and the Department of Neighborhoods, the Houston Still Needs You campaign. The campaign's mission is to engage and recruit volunteers and connect them to agencies and organizations that are providing relief and recovery services to residents across the city. This program will allow us to more accurately report volunteer hours for Harvey-related relief and recovery activities and ensure the maximum volunteer offset for FEMA match requirements. We will be working directly with Microsoft on a digital platform, and there's an announcement, a future announcement with Microsoft that will be coming soon. We're asking individuals who want to volunteer, as well as organized groups such as corporate teams, faith-based groups, student organizations, professional trade organizations, and skilled or licensed professionals in a variety of disciplines. Tomorrow, on Saturday, February 24th, and there will be a lot of things taking place tomorrow, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The city will kick off the Houston Still Needs You campaign in partnership with 2 Hurricane Harvey Relief Fund recipients, Rebuilding Houston Together, and Chapelwood United Methodist Church, and corporate community partner DeJohn Homes, which is providing skilled construction workers. The year one goal is 2 million volunteer hours. It is ambitious, but we believe that we can achieve that. Fellow Houstonians, Houston still needs you. To find out how you can help, visit the Volunteer Initiative's website at houstontx.gov/volunteer or call 832-393-1061. And then lastly, over the last 6 months and even before, I don't want to close without saying I believe that the relationship between the city and the county is stronger than it has ever been. And I certainly want to acknowledge working in collaboration with Judge Ed Emmett and all of the commissioners and their respective partners on their end, along with the city. The relationship with the city and the county is extremely strong. And so I want to thank the county and all of them for working as we advance the interests of the entire region. Having said that, we are now open for any questions that you may have.
Mayor, could I ask you a question? And what are your thoughts about the Army Corps of Engineer memos prior to Harvey coming in that predicted catastrophic flooding, but apparently that information wasn't disseminated even to the county and, to the best of your knowledge, to the city?
To the best of my knowledge, I hadn't seen it. Let me just say information is important. And that's why it's important to try to provide people as much notice ahead of time so they'll know where they are going to be buying, where they're going to be living. That information is important. And so as we go forward, I think we take lessons learned and make that information available. It is important while we're seeking to amend Chapter 19 to build higher, okay? Because we've certainly been placed on notice, and so we need to build higher. It is important to provide people with notice if you know that areas are going to flood ahead of time so that they can take the appropriate action.
But as a follow-up, and that's certainly good for planning purposes, but this was more the predictor of the rainfall and the flooding around the reservoir areas on some of that government land where there were houses. Some of that may not be in the city of Houston, but there are concerns the information was withheld that might have helped with evacuation notices or recommendations. Are you concerned that information doesn't appear to have been disseminated?
Well, I'm always concerned if we're holding on to information that's important that will affect people's well-being and their safety. I'm always concerned. You never know where rain will fall or where the next incident will be. And to the extent we have information where people can make the necessary plans ahead of time, we need to provide that information. So, yeah, it is concerning, okay? But I think we need to learn from that on how we prepare going forward. So if any of us, for example, if we are sitting on information or have information that will help people down going forward on how to respond, on how to get prepared, on what, on assisting us as leaders in making decisions on whether or not we tell people to shelter in place or whether to do something else, all of that information should be made readily available. Okay.
Mayor, has the city
Yes.
received any written confirmation from FEMA that the agency is prepared to accept volunteer hours toward the city's payment of its local match?
Let me get to tomorrow.
So we are, as we reported a couple of weeks ago, we're still actively in discussions. As a matter of fact, we had another one this week with FEMA. And maybe just characterize this a bit. So as FEMA dollars come in for particularly things like city infrastructure repair, there's a 10% match requirement by the city. If we have $2 to $3 billion worth of damage, that's $200 to $300 million. That's an enormous burden on the city of Houston. So what we've asked FEMA to do is, can we extend for those type of repair items an offset using volunteer hours to create a value to qualify for that match? FEMA has responded very positively to that request, and they're actually working. I would describe it this way: they're working very hard to finish the definition of what qualifies now, given their full legislative mandate. And they've also asked us for assistance to say if we'd like to expand this program further, can you work with your congressional delegation and the legislature to give us more leeway here? So that's going to be the next step. So I expect something will happen. My expectation is the first pass with their current mandate will be limited, and then we'll look to expand that through Congress.
And I will say that's one of the reasons why we're excited about the relationship that we are establishing with Microsoft, establishing that digital platform, because I think this can be it could be a novel idea, one of a kind, in the entire country. And so we're excited about the prospects of this volunteer program. Yes, Maria.
Mayor, one day here the governor talked about that. In fact, he said that the money, there was $3.2 billion for the coastal fine prevention study and construction. But I hear that that's not quite accurate. Do you know what the truth is on that?
Well, I think within that $90 billion, there are mitigation dollars. And certainly as the congressional delegation from our area were lobbying for those dollars, the coastal spine was certainly in mind. I think there are dollars within that $90 billion for the coastal spine. Specifically how much, we don't yet know. Because we don't know of that $90 billion, how much of that will be coming to Texas. Okay? So the $90 billion, what we do know, $90 billion was awarded, $90 billion for Florida, Texas, California, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. That we do know. We do know that they did change the formula so that more of those dollars will be coming to the state of Texas. That was a plus. And we do know that within that $90 billion, some of those dollars were intended for mitigation strategies like expanding the bayous, detention basins, the coastal spine, things of that nature. Now, how much will be allocated to a particular item, like the coastal spine, we don't yet know. My hope is that what we don't get from this $90 billion, that the governor will tap the rainy day fund and add the rest.
Mayor, when do you think we'll know how much of that $90 billion we will be getting here in Texas?
Well, let's just say with respect to the $5 billion that we know is coming to Texas, and hopefully about 51% of that or more will be coming to the Houston, region. We don't anticipate those dollars coming until sometime this summer. That's the $5 billion that's already been in the pipeline. The $90 billion, whatever portion we're going to get from the $90 billion, will be after that. If that gives you some idea.
We only have time for a couple of more questions. The mayor needs to get on the road. We have department heads, including public works and neighborhoods, if you have any additional questions.
Yes, sir.
Some of the long-term rehabilitation projects, are you pleased with sort of the momentum we're at right now as far as the skills and do you think you have any support from the state? Because I've seen some, intention between locally and the state about the rain day fund and having some of that money used to build or fund some of those projects. Do you think there's enough support there to get this? Are you pleased with what we're now on this
Yeah.
project?
Let me tell you, I'm excited by the fact that Harris County and the city of Houston are on the same page. I mean, we pretty much agree on what's needed to make our areas stronger and more resilient. So that's a plus. I am pleased that we are having the conversations with the state and the rapport and the relationship that we're establishing with the governor and his team. So I'm pleased with the progress that's been made there. And the governor's already made some changes on appointments that will benefit certain areas. So that's a plus. So I'm pleased on that end. I think we are all in agreement on the state level, county, and the city level about what's needed for Texas. And initially, the governor asked for $61 billion, and we are all in agreement that we need that $61 billion. Now, how much of that we're going to get out of the $90 billion, we're yet to see. But hopefully, this won't be the final amount that will be coming from the feds. Hopefully, there will be some additional amount. But we simply can't ask. We simply don't need money for us to build where we were before. Because as I've said before, that's funding for failure. So I'm pleased with the progress that's been made and the partners that we have on the at the congressional level, on the state level, on the county and the city level. And I think we're all going to keep pushing because it's, quite frankly, it's in all of our best interest to make Texas and our region as strong as possible.
And Mayor, generally speaking, recovery, that's the heavy lifting of any disaster.
Yes.
It's been 6 months. Are you pleased with the speed of the recovery, or is...
I am very pleased with what has happened on the local level in the city of Houston in terms of how we've bounced back. I don't think any other city could have bounced back, could have done the things that we have done quicker than what we did, okay? Because FEMA initially told me it would be Christmas or January before we made the first pass to pick up that debris. And we didn't just have vegetative debris. Literally, people emptied out their houses onto the streets. I think Councilman Dave Martin can tell you how quickly things took place in Kingwood. In 32 days in Kingwood. Same thing on the west side, same thing in Cashmere Gardens area, the northeast area, the Maryland and Bracewood area. We moved very, very quickly. That stuff was up on the first pass in October. That's why I want to thank Harvey and his team, because they worked 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Okay. In getting that done. Look, the zoo was open on Friday after the storm. Metro's transit system was working on Friday, immediately after the storm. The Astros were playing again on Saturday against the New York Mets and won 2, a precursor to what was going to happen later on. You know, the port came back open in 2 weeks, the airport. So I'm pleased with that rate of recovery, but the damage is behind the walls. The damage is behind the walls. We still have thousands of individuals who are living in homes that need repairing yesterday. I'm especially sensitive to seniors, okay, people with special needs, people in low-income communities who are already on the margins, and middle-income families who've exhausted their resources. And they're asking who's going to help us, okay? So there are many different groups. This wasn't a storm that did not discriminate, okay? It hit everyone. So I'm pleased with the progress. I can't say enough for the nonprofits and the volunteers and companies, local companies who have stepped up. You don't get $112 million in local relief fund. You know, 125,000 people contributed. That is in addition to what was given to J.J. Watt's Group Foundation. And that's in addition to what was given to the Governor's Relief Fund. Okay. So on a local level, I cannot thank people enough. Neighbors, helping neighbors, community people stepping up, first responders, the Cajun Navy stepping up. I can't thank them enough. Now, do we need our other partners to work with a sense of urgency? Yes. Yeah. And it's not enough just to appropriate the dollars. The dollars have to reach locally. So we still need GLO, FEMA, HUD to respond with, as quickly as possible. And hopefully it won't be until the summer before that $5 billion comes in. Hopefully it won't be the summer. We need more case managers. People are still trying to determine where do we turn, who do we go to. But I do want people to know that with the volunteer program, we still, the 2 million hours, with everyone, we are going to get to you. Now let me say this to Houstonians. No one will be left behind. No one is going to be ignored. Okay? We are not going to move on and leave you where you have been and where you are. And I say that especially to our seniors in the city. If you know of seniors in homes and the homes got mold infested and they need to come out of there, they need help, then call in for them. Okay? Don't let them just stay in those homes. We will find a way to get to them as quickly as possible. Okay? But no one in the city is going to be left behind. And I am very grateful to this team, being led by Marvin, to all of the department heads who are here, to our partners, Beth. Parks have played a vital role in green space in our mitigation. They held up very, very well. And so there are a number of things that we need to continue to do and to make our city more resilient. One more, and I'm done. We're done. We did it. Thank you all so very much. And lastly, let me. They're probably going to fall down and pass out when I say this. And let me thank the media. No, serious. Let me do this. Because leading up to the storm, there was a lot of reporting. We kept telling people, get prepared, get prepared. You can't get that message out without the media, both electric as well as print. During the storm, coverage pretty much 24 hours a day, okay? Providing people with that information. I can't tell you the number of people who have come up to us and said, thank you for making the information available. You know, thank you for keeping everybody informed, for keeping us calm. And then after the fact. So let me just say, as we look at 6 months in review, and as we go forward, I do want to include the media in my thanks for being a partner with us in this particular recovery. But for your efforts, a lot more lives would have been lost. And because of the information that was disseminated and in real time, considering the magnitude of this storm, we did not have nearly as many as folk thought would have lost their lives. Losing one is too many, but considering the magnitude of this storm, Houston fared especially well. When you consider in 2005, when we chose to evacuate, about 120 people lost their lives while we were attempting to evacuate. So I want to thank all of our partners, and that includes the media. Now y'all go and pick them up because I saw a few of them falling. But I want to thank you as well for helping to make this city a great city and safe. Okay, thank you. And thank the members of the City Council. I can't thank you enough.